So, good morning, everybody. I am happy that in a session of e-lectures, I am at least able to see few students who are there in my class. So, I'm just taking an advantage. And can somebody tell me the parts of uvea? If at all you have heard of it. Right. So students sitting in our class replied it's iris, ciliary body and choroid. So can we have the next slide, please? So objectives of my sessions. I always want my undergraduates to be very clear that today we all are going to see that how we define or classify uveitis, right? We also want to know what's the etiology behind uveitis, the basic of clinical features. What I mean is, whatever pain and redness and everything, what are the reasons behind it? That's what we want to know. And understand importance of tailor-made investigations, basics of even treatment and sequelae. Okay, because for my undergraduates, we want them to know, because this particular disease is associated a lot with the systemic diseases. So you need to know, and you can never forget that it can occur in so and so conditions. Next. So as he rightly told that this is how in a cross section we see our eyeball. Okay, so that's your iris, ciliary body and choroid. Okay, so retina is in front of choroid or behind choroid? In front of choroid, right? So most of the choroidal diseases or inflammation will even involve retina, isn't it? Okay, so once again, no, the same slide. So here I am showing you the beautiful picture of the cross-section of eye, where you can see all situations. That white thing is your cornea. In between cornea and the cut section of ciliary body, you have anterior chamber, right? Iris, the ciliary body. And ciliary body has a pars plana and pars plicata. There are plications in the anterior part. Okay? And this ciliary body plicata is attached with lens with zonules. Right? So you should understand all this, because how iris inflammation can cause problems with anterior chamber, with cornea, or in the lens, or in the vitreous, or ciliary body itself. Okay. So the word uva is grapes. The structured thing is like that. So in ophthalmology, there are many either German or other language terms, starting from cataract to glaucoma, chalazion. Everything is not an English word. It has a meaning. And I want all my undergraduates to find out how many words in ophthalmology. Make your own kind of dictionary. And please remember, it's important. Next. How do you classify? As somebody told about the parts. So when we look for the anatomical classification, it's according to the part informed. If it is iris, it is iritis. Ciliary body, it is called cyclitis. Choroid, it will be choroiditis. Wonderful. So even anatomy of the anterior, intermediate and posterior, if we divide, so iritis, iridocyclitis and anterior cyclitis. Or if we talk about the intermediate part, as I told you, pars planitis, because ciliary body we took into anterior uveitis, but pars plana is a intermediate part. So it's pars planitis or posterior cyclitis. Hylitis is inflammation of or inflammatory cells in vitreous. Hyaloid is the term used for vitreous. Posterior can be choroiditis or chorioretinitis, which can be one single, multifocal, diffuse, chorioretinitis, or only retinitis or neuroretinitis. All these terms, we consider into. And when all structures are involved, we will call it
panuveitis.
Panuveitis. Next. So clinically, that was anatomical classification. How do you classify clinically? So it is acute, recurrent, chronic. Okay, what will be acute? In all diseases. It is a sudden onset for a limited duration. What will you call a recurrent? It's repeated, and for uveitis, inactivity without treatment for more than 3 months. Okay, and then it recurs. Or if it is persistent with relapse in even less than 3 months after stopping the treatment, it will be chronic. Got it? And pathological classification will be granulomatous and non-granulomatous. So when we talk about epithelioid and giant cells, granulomatous, otherwise non-granulomatous. May I know which are the which are the granulomatous diseases you know?
Tuberculosis, sarcoidosis, rheumatoid arthritis.
No, that's autoimmune. Syphilis. Okay? So, they are granulomatous. Next. So, etiology can be anything ranging from idiopathic. Like you will say first, why idiopathic? Most of the cases we have not found out the reasons. So, that's a huge group which goes in idiopathic. My postgraduate students will soon learn that ma'am itne sare investigations kiye, kuch positive nahi aaya. Most of the times it's like that. Research is going on and on to see or to further classify this particular idiopathic group, that if we find some newer diseases or allergy or anything. Okay. So next is infective, which can be mainly bacterial. Okay. Immune related, these are the HLA-B27, rheumatoid arthritis, SLE or polyarthritis nodosa. Quite a bit patients are presenting with uveitis in this particular cases. Neoplastic can be uveal melanoma or iridociliary adenoma. Other variety is traumatic. So it's a inflammatory diseases. Never forget, it's not much an infective, but toxins of organisms initiate inflammation. Okay? Next. So what will be the presentation of anterior uveitis? Iritis, iridocyclitis and anterior cyclitis, right? So there will be a triad of pain, redness, photophobia with or without dimness of vision. Why with or without? Because unless and until it causes too much of inflammatory cells in anterior chamber or they deposit on cornea, it will not cause dimness of vision till then. So, if you see other conditions, like let's say we talk about corneal ulcer, because in undergraduates you have this particular question, differential diagnosis of red eye. So mainly you differentiate conjunctivitis, glaucoma and uveitis. So sequence of events for symptomatology is different in all these three diseases. So these are very important, that it starts with pain. Chronic iridocyclitis may have variable presentations. It can sometimes come with secondary glaucoma. And you examine and you see there are many inflammatory cells which are clogging trabecular meshwork and causing secondary glaucoma. Correct? So what are the reasons I was talking about? You should know why pain. Pain is because the fifth nerve, which is ophthalmic division, and due to ciliary spasm, it gets irritated. Abnormal sensitivity due to pain from ciliary spasm and miosis cause light intolerance or photophobia. And redness is because of ciliary congestion, which is 360 degree. It's there in glaucoma also. It's rebound. It is, presented like a ciliary congestion. So it is around limbus. Okay. So if you go into vascular supply of the eye, you have circle, iris major and minor. And because of either pressure or inflammation, they the congestion is seen in the ciliary region. These are the main two reasons. Another reason is foreign body. Not many foreign body, no, it will initiate again ciliary congestion. Next. So, one we told about ciliary congestion. Now, what happens is because of inflammation, there are many inflammatory cells in the anterior chamber. What does anterior chamber contain?
Aqueous humor.
Aqueous humor. So it's a fluid. So they roam around in aqueous. This particular inflammatory cells, because there is a convection current, the air atmosphere is cooler than inside. So the current is like this. So while going like this, they will get adhered to endothelium. Keretic word is used for cornea. Keratitis is inflammation of cornea. So keretic precipitates are inflammatory cells stuck onto the endothelium. Okay, so that's another sign. Aqueous becomes turbid. What is a Tyndall phenomenon? Tyndall effect in physics. Now, supposing there is a hole in the room and sun rays are coming, how will it come? Ray like, you see those dust particles inside the room. That's called Tyndall phenomenon, right? So when the aqueous becomes turbid and you put a slit lamp microscope obliquely examines the eyeball, cut section. So when you put a small hole, because the aqueous is turbid, in a clear aqueous, there will not be Tyndall phenomenon. But when it is some particulate matter or inflammatory cells, you will see the flare. That's called?
Aqueous flare.
Correct. So, depends on how much the inflammation is. They get settled. Suppose it's fibrinous and highly proteinous material, because of the gravitational effect, it gets settled down and creates hypopion. Now, hypopion is there in infective condition also, like endophthalmitis. Corneal ulcer, but corneal ulcer, you have a clear-cut ulcer on the cornea. But another condition where there will be hypopion will be endophthalmitis, right? That's a post-operative infection. But this particular hypopion, we will call plastic iridocyclitis. Okay? There's a lot of fibrinous material. Too much of turbidity in aqueous gets settled down. Generally, acute iritis will have a myotic pupil. Okay, initially. Then what happens is the inflammation increases and there will be inflammatory material in between iris and lens also. Okay, so what happens is iris gets stuck with the lens, which is called synechia. But because iris falls down and gets stuck to the lens like this, it will be posterior synechia, isn't it? Now if iris goes like this, anterior synechia, but that's not a very common event. Generally posterior synechia is very common. Next. Now, see what happens. There may not be one single posterior synechia. There may be synechia at various places. Okay, so which hampers the pupillary dilatation or reaction of pupil. So with a heavy cycloplegics or mydriatics, if we attempt to dilate pupil, what will happen? Sites wherever there are synechia will not dilate. Okay, so what will happen over lens? At areas where synechia is there, the pupil won't dilate. Other areas, it will outpouch. So we will call it a festoon pupil. You have in Christmas and Diwalis, no? Those festoon. That is a festoon pupil. Further, if the inflammation increases, what will happen? There can be something called as ring synechia. The pupillary border, the whole pupillary border gets stuck to the lens. Otherwise, the iris is free. But the pupillary border, we'll call it ring synechia. Total synechia means ring synechia and total iris is stuck with the lens. So it will be something like this, all parts. Okay? So if there is a ring synechia, there is a total synechia. Now, how does aqueous enters the anterior chamber? Through this particular potential space. When it is closed, what will happen? The pressure will rise, right, into the posterior chamber. So it will cause even a secondary glaucoma. Okay, now inflammatory material, this with an inflammatory material here, we will call it, now this will become a occlusio pupil. But when there is an inflammatory material or a membrane in pupil, we will call it seclusio pupil. Just remember how the sequelae from ciliary congestion to keratic precipitates to Tyndall phenomenon or aqueous flare to posterior synechia, ring synechia, total synechia, occlusio pupil, seclusio pupil, secondary glaucoma. I wish you all understand. Are you all with me? Sure? Yeah? So, and what is iris Bombay? Now, this particular situation, either ring synechia or total synechia, the aqueous secreted from the ciliary body will push the iris. So, the iris will attain this kind of forward bulging. This we will call as iris Bombay. Okay? Next. Now, the inflammation behind the lens, the exudative membrane and inflammatory material behind the lens, we'll call it cyclitic membrane. Always remember it's posterior to lens. So supposing you see with a fundus, generally you have a red glow. But if there is a cyclitic membrane, you don't see anything in front. Lens is clear, everything is clear, but there will be some whitish reflex, which is behind the lens. So it's not a cataract. Okay? Anterior synechia, we told, not a very regular occurrence, but that can also occur as the chronicity, the disease becomes more and more chronic. Pars planitis is intermediate uveitis, choroiditis, inflammation of choroid. It can even affect optic nerve causing papillitis, chorioretinitis, and even macular edema. Check? Next. So this is what I am showing. Can anybody tell me? What am I showing? What is this? Hypopyon. This is a corneal slit. And something inside the pupil you can see? Some yellowish material. It's not a black pupil, isn't it? There is some inflammatory material inside pupil. Okay? Can you appreciate that? Yes or no? You do. Next. So, intermediate uveitis is a little hazardous thing because, it generally don't give much symptom. The thing occurs at pars plana, so the front visual axis is very clear. So, what you have is the inflammatory material goes in the vitreous. And there will be now opacities in vitreous, which will be seen as a black opacity in vitreous, what we call floaters. And there will be diminished of vision, for which you need to do an indirect ophthalmoscopy. Otherwise, with anterior segment examination or slit lamp, you will not be able to diagnose. Next. So, inflammation at the vitreous base, pars plana, peripheral retinal complex. What happens is aggregation of WBCs which form clumps at pars plana. So, vitreous base inflammation, because of this, can present even as anterior uveitis, posterior ciliitis or anterior ciliary infection, pars plana. It can go even to peripheral retina or it can be in the anterior chamber. Next. Posterior uveitis. What we saw till now is anterior, intermediate, now posterior. So it is generally painless, but there is a good amount of dimness of vision depending upon which part it is affecting. Okay, supposing you told me about granulomatous, and if there is a central chorioretinitis or something like that, there will be gross dimness of vision. Otherwise, if it is in periphery, there won't be any dimness of vision. Okay? So, painless. Patient can have floaters. Intelligent patient can say that I see some weird shapes and size when I see some patterns. Okay? So he can see what we call metamorphopsia. and photopsia because it is related to the posterior vitreous and the anterior structures of retina. And a blurring of vision, I told you when it will occur. Next. So this I was telling, metamorphopsia. A graticle or something like this presented to them, they will see like this. Okay, next. So, inflammation in choroid or retina or both can present either as focal, multifocal or diffuse, I told you. And it is the inflammation into vitreous, choroid, retina or even optic nerve causing papillitis. Next. So what is that? What is that? If we talk about choroiditis, focal, multifocal or diffuse? At least you can say it is multifocal. Those white lesions, otherwise you have a retina like this. But whenever there is a lesion in choroid, they will be seen like this. And if retina is also involved, and it's a chronic chorioretinitis, then there will be even pigmentation in that particular patch. Okay? So what is this? This is a pretty far away from the central part. Isn't it? No, to see the pars plana, supposing we talk about pars planitis, which is snow banking they call, or snowballs at pars plana, it is seen with indirect ophthalmoscopy very near to ora serrata, where the retina attaches. So you all told that anterior to the choroid there is retina. Next. I already told you about secondary glaucoma. The disease is absolutely hazardous for eye for two reasons: that most of the disease is idiopathic. So you don't find any reason. So it's not that you treat a disease and it is solved. Okay. So it's a very common cause, very hazardous eye disease where if not treated early or not diagnosed properly, the patient has gone into chronicity, can absolutely or surely induce blindness. Okay. So it can cause secondary glaucoma. It can cause complicated cataract. As I told you, there are events like posterior synechia. There is a kind of a break in the vitreous blood barrier or aqueous blood barrier. So, this particular anterior capsule becomes permeable to inflammatory substances. So generally it gives rise to posterior subcapsular cataract, which we call a complicated cataract. It can cause cystoid macular edema, I already told you, because of the prostaglandin release in inflammatory processes. And it can even give rise to band-shaped keratopathy. You have in palpable fissure, you have a opacity, horizontal. Okay. Generally, it is seen in juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Those patients who has that can develop band keratopathy. Next. So there's a huge lot of investigations because we see in etiology, it's infective, idiopathic to forget, but it's infective, it's associated with so many autoimmune diseases, granulomatous diseases. So if you see one single case of iridocyclitis and if you know the subject that this can cause uveitis, you will list the whole lot of investigations. So what they advise is a clinician should judge that what tailor-made investigations are needed for so and so case. So for that only I told you about different variants, acute, recurrent, chronic, even which are the signs for granulomatous. I think I didn't tell you, but from keratic precipitates also you can judge whether it is granulomatous or non-granulomatous. You will come across the term fine keratic precipitates and button fat keratic precipitate. I mean larger one, KPs what we call. So they are found in granulomatous diseases. So clinician can actually order tailor-made investigations if his or her knowledge is good about all those signs, symptoms caused by so and so diseases. Also the patient will give you history if he or she has tuberculosis or syphilis or other things, right? So generally we order complete blood count, chest x-ray, ACE for sarcoidosis. BDRL, and other tests depending on, as I told you, clinical suspicion. Next. So you all know, maybe better than what you do for sarcoid, what you do for tuberculosis, what you do for toxoplasma, and what you do for syphilis. Okay? Next. So finding the etiology will be our first thing, but if not, we can't find. So, we narrow down the list by history and all that stuff, and referrals if systemic associations you find. Otherwise, you go next for specific therapy. So, let's say tuberculosis, you know what to do. Syphilis, you know what to do. Toxoplasmosis or acute retinal necrosis. We are not touching HIV-induced iridocyclitis because ophthalmic manifestations of HIV will be another lecture for you, right? But it is one of the reasons. Or cytomegalovirus retinitis, okay? These are opportunistic infections in case of HIV. Next. Though it is non-specific, but in all patients you start cycloplegic. I always put cycloplegic as first. It relieves pain. It does many things. My PG scan will tell you 10 functions of atropine. That it causes dilatation of pupil. It causes cycloplegia, rest to eye. It reduces inflammation, end arterial constriction, and superficial arterial vasodilatation, so that more and more drug will penetrate. So there are n number of advantages of putting a strong cycloplegics. Only disadvantage is the patient will lose vision, near vision, for about a week to 14 days, depending upon which cycloplegic you are using. But it is a master drug for at least anterior iridocyclitis or anterior uveitis. Corticosteroids, as this is a inflammatory disease, I told you it's not an infective, it is an inflammatory disease. These steroids can be ranging from topical drops to subconjunctival injection to paraocular injection to subtenon injections of steroids. Not only that, in certain cases we give systemic steroids in form of methylprednisolone. It depends on what variety, what anatomical anatomical position of inflammation it is, we may choose. And even immunosuppressives. There's a lot of use of immunosuppressives now. We were really afraid as young ophthalmologists, but especially in cases of pars planitis, which is mainly autoimmune disease. And even if you don't find diseases, the diagnosis or investigations positive, ophthalmologists would refer such cases to rheumatologists or other people, and this really helps. Why? Because early use of immunomodulators may postpone or avoid development of cystoid macular edema, which is a very, very important cause of blindness for such diseases. Okay, next. So, to relieve ciliary spasm, I told you, to prevent posterior synecdoche, and to reduce exudation by causing peripheral vasoconstriction, to increase duct penetration by separating corneal lamellae. These are the functions of atropine. Next. I told you already about different modes. So, topical drops will not be effective for intermediate and posterior. It will not reach, right? Only anterior uveitis, topical drops will reach. So, use enough, soon enough, I always tell. Like my residents, they start in an anterior uveitis case, steroids, they just keep this thing, and patient next day if comes with 6 vision, you can't stop it. So minimum instillation of steroid into reducing doses will be 1.5 months for uveitis. Okay. So otherwise, I taught you about the recurrent uveitis, which is an entity very common. Start with a higher dose and taper. To investigate before starting and regular follow-up, minimum 1.5 months. You need to see your patient maybe weekly or thereafter 15 days, but you need to see, remember it very well. I told you about immunomodulators. This is how you classify pharmacology. Probably you know better than us, but you have antimetabolites, alkylating agents, T-cell inhibitors, which reduces vision threatening situations. I already told. When there are situations for contraindications of steroids, you may use them. And reversibility of disease process. It kills the rapidly dividing clones of lymphocytes, the modulators, right? Next. So enough of a kind of theory and lot of knowledge. Now let me see how my students reply. So it's your turn now. Ready? Next. So what's that first figure? Wonderful. It's a festoon pupil. The next. What am I trying to show? Keratic precipitates, right? It's a slit lamp. So on the cornea, there are deposits. This one. This one. I told you one entity where you see sometimes these keratic precipitates are seen with a torchlight. There are large mutton fat keratic precipitates. Okay? What's that? I taught you the phenomenon. It's a Tyndall effect. So, aqueous flare, we will call it. Correct? All are with me? Any doubts? Come on, next. What's that again? Festoon, and there is a part of ciliary congestion also. What is next? What will you call that figure? The middle one? Ring synechiae will be the whole pupillary border. So which is a single. So it's a posterior synechiae. Right? The iris is stuck to the lens. Correct? And what is this? Once again, भले kidney का shape है, but we are trying to show that one posterior synechiae when got dilated gave rise to this kind of pupil. If there are 2, 3 more, will become again festoon. Right? Next. Once again, a different type. I did not tell you for specifically reasons, but there are Koppe and Busaka nodules for iris. So my PG will tell what are Koppe nodules and what are Busaka nodules in iris.
Copies and Busaka's nodules, they are seen in one are seen over the pupillary margin, and the another one, the copies nodule are towards the periphery of the iris.
What are they seen in? Which conditions? Homework. So these are those iris nodules which are showing. Okay. And what is this? I'm trying to show hypopyon. And there is something in the pupil also. No, it's not a black pupil. There is exudation in the pupillary region also. Next. What am I showing in the first figure? Only UG will speak. Yes? Which type of synechiae it is? I drew it for you also. It's a total. The whole iris is stuck. What is this? Wonderful. So once again in a slit lamp, what is this? What is this? If this particular thing and you see in slit lamp, again, iris Bombay. Correct? Yeah. Next. I have already written, but the lens will be clear, but the white exudation will be behind the lens. That's cyclitic membrane. A total vitreous haze. Sometimes we see with indirect ophthalmoscopy and can't see fundus. Look at that. So there's a lot of inflammation in vitreous will not allow to see the fundus. Right now we cannot tell what it is. Whether it is optic nerve lesion or anything in retina, we don't know. Maybe some peripheral. But what I will comment as undergraduate in this is a vitreous haze. Highlightis, I gave you the term. Okay? And what is this? Because the scars are with pigmentation. What will we call? Chorioretinitis. But it has occurred in the central part. This is a part where macula will be there. So we will call it one central chorioretinitis. Okay? Next. What are those? Once again, yellow lesions, scattered, many, will call multifocal choroiditis. Because they are yellow. You are never sure whether this thing. And the acute phase of choroiditis, you will have a vitreous haze and yellow spots. In chronic, you will not have vitreous haze and they will attain either white or whitish black patches. Okay? So this is maybe a diffuse. Till disc you have choroid. What about this? Because you must not be very much familiar with the macular structure, but this is a macular region showing cystoid macular edema. Okay? Next. I didn't tell you, but if anybody can tell me the condition, slowly what happens with a severe inflammation, the ciliary body shuts down. It no more secretes the aqueous. So what will occur? Hypotony. Now this particular tension, intraocular pressure is very important to be maintained. Otherwise, nourishment of structures will not occur. Optical transparency will not remain. So you need to have aqueous secretions continuously in a human eye. So it shuts down. There is a lot of inflammation. It becomes very soft eye. Blind eye, no perception of light, we'll call it as wonderful. It will be called phthisis bulbi. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Any questions we can take for? So uveitis is done, huh? And you will revise once and you will be all fine with that. May I expect that? Hello? Sure? No doubts?